Hi and welcome to tabletopbattle.com. Today I'm going to do a quick review of the Germany Strikes Early War in Europe supplement to the bolt action rules. This is just recently released. I got it in the mail today and I've taken a few sneak peeks at it and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my impression about it and if you should buy it. Okay, so what do you get in the book? Well, first off, there are, of course, some theaters. First off is, of course, Poland, which is where the war, in essence, started in 1939. Then you have actions in Norway and Denmark for 1940. And then, of course, there are France. There are 4 scenarios for Poland, 2 for Norway/Denmark, and then 10 scenarios for France. A cool thing about the France scenarios is that they can be played as a linked campaign, and there is a points system that you can use to tally up the final result in the end. So that is quite cool if you have well, if you have some spare nights and you want to try out a really long link campaign. There are 10 scenarios for you to play, and it even involves the Italians attacking the southern France also. So quite cool. Okay, let's take a look at what you get for the Poles. Okay, so the book is 104 pages. The first 16 are your general historical fluff, talking about the prelude to the war and how it went and about the different nations. So just some historical fluff, 16 pages of that, quite interesting to read. But of course this is the heart of the book, the parts that contain information about the different operations. This is Case White, Poland. So what you get for the Polish part? Well, introduction, of course, talking about the Polish forces and the army and whatnot. You have a timeline that tells the story of the war in Poland, which is quite nice. Then you have scenario. The first up, like I said, there are 4. The first up takes happens in Danzig, where Germans are assaulting a Polish post office. It has a nice setup. It's meant for small teams, but it has some special rules, including explosive charges, among others. Then you have scenario 2, which is armored train, and that means, of course, there will be rules for armored trains in this book, which can be or can not be cool depending on your preference. I think it's cool that you have the option. Of course, when you look at this and read about it, you immediately think about Flames of War and their armored train that came out, well, 1 or 2 years ago. But anyway, now you have it available for bolt action. And also there are these player notes on each scenario, which kind of tell you what you should and should not do as a player to try to maximize the outcome and result of the battles, because some of them can be quite one-sided if you just play it your normal way. Then you have scenario 3, which is cavalry charge, of course based upon the foolish notion that Polish lancers attacked the German tanks, which of course is not true. This uses the real action as its base for this scenario. And then scenario 4, the Black Brigade, whatever that is. So those are the 4 scenarios, and like I mentioned, also player note to tell you what you should and should not do. And those are the 4 scenarios for the Polish. But then of course you have additional units, and this is quite cool. Cool thing about this book is that if you are Polish player, then you get 4 scenarios. If you are Norwegian/Danish, you get 2 scenarios, and if you're French, then you get 10 scenarios, or rather if you play those armies. But if you are German or playing the German army, you get 16 scenarios and a host of new additional units. But for the Polish, you get some infantry, post office garrison light machine gun, post office grenade section. You get the VZ-29 Ursus, which has previously only been on the Warlord Games Additional Unit PDF. So now you have it in a book. Then you have a half-track truck and a jeep. So those are some additional units for the Poles. I don't see much use for these post office units in a real battle. Maybe in a tournament setting that you can choose whatever you want, but if you want to play like historical battles that do not take part in Danzig and the Polish post office, I really don't see any use for this. But of course the VZ-29 Ursus, that's a nice addition. For the Germans you have some units, infantry, SA, Sturmabteilung, police, sapper team, that's interesting. And you have a new heavy armored car. It's much like the SDKFZ 222. Two hull-mounted medium machine guns, front and back, one turret-mounted medium machine gun. 95 points. It's not open top though, so this can actually be a nice one. And then you have a Panzerbefehlwagen, that's a command wagon. Okay, so those were the extra units. Then you have theater selections, depending on the 4 scenarios that we have just talked about. Post office, armored train, cavalry, and the Black Brigade. So those are the 4 scenarios with their theater or army list options. And also you get some legends if you want to add some flavor to your game. People that have extra morale or extra special rules. So quite cool. There are actually 3 of them in the Polish part. Okay, so those are the Poles, 4 scenarios, new special rules, armored train, some new units. The armored train part is in the back of the book, so we will take a look at that when we get to that. Okay, Denmark and Norway. This is, well, for me, quite interesting, since I am Norwegian. Although you get only 2 scenarios, not so much, but of course nothing much did really happen in these countries, Denmark and Norway. Denmark fell quite fast and Norway held out for quite some time with the help of both Polish and British and French units. There is also the timeline over here that goes from January 27 to 28th of July. Then you have the first scenario, roadblock, where you have to hold off the Germans, of course. And then you have the scenario 6, which is called land ship. But those are the 2 you have. Player notes as usual. And they also have additional units, but for Norwegian there is only this horse-drawn limber, not really much to talk about. For German units you get a land ship. This might have something to do with this scenario. This is a very cheap 112 points inexperienced tank with turret-mounted light howitzer, coaxial light anti-tank gun, 1 turret-mounted medium machine gun, 1 turret-mounted medium machine gun, armor value of 8, and you can even convert the light howitzer to a medium howitzer. So it's a battleship on land, and could be interesting for early war games, because if you have 2 medium, or if you have 1 medium howitzer in a tank with the armor value of 8, could be quite handy. However, this unit, this Neubaufahrzeug Panzerkampfwagen 5 Model A, it was only made in 5, well, only 5 of them were ever made, and they were probably only used in Norway. Anyway, the most interesting thing is probably the Danish army list, since they do not have an entry in the armies of the Allies, or armies of France and the Allies. So here you get a Danish army list where you can choose officer, medic, forward observer, infantry sections, cavalry, machine gun, medium mortar, and of course field artillery, anti-tank guns, anti-aircraft guns, armored cars. So with this you have what you need to field a small Danish army to do some skirmishes with the Germans. And they also have a TOW and transport here. TOW? TOW. Theater selector, Danish army with special rules. And then you have some British units with special rules. In this particular one, you cannot use the free artillery observer. Instead you have some other special rules. Legends of Germany is included here. And then you have a generic Allied Norway Defense Force, but of course you can just pick that from the campaign book, or not the campaign book, but the army book, France and the Allies, where Norway is represented quite well. Okay, now over to case yellow, the Low Countries, which will hold the next 10 missions or scenarios. This will be, of course, the invasion of the Low Countries, Belgium, and then on to France. So 4 or 5 pages of fluff in this one. Then you have, like what I talked about, the France campaign, where you can play the 10 scenarios as a linked campaign, and this will tell you how or when you win when you look at the point scores. So that's quite nice. You have a timeline from February 1940 to June 4th. You have 10 scenarios like I talked about. Ebenemal should be enough just to buy the book to get this one. And this will also include hollow charges for the Germans. The Battle of Orp, the great or the largest tank battle of World War II, up to that point, of course. Information about that, player notes as usual. Scenario 9, the Battle of Ston. If you go to tabletopbattle.com and look at bolt action and player content, there is a couple of videos there from Steve Gusky. He has made a Battle of Ston scenario video, so that's up there if you want to take a look. And then you have scenario 10, Frank Force at Arras. Scenario 11, cruiser tanks attacks. And then you come, that's kind of the Low Countries part. And then you get additional units for Belgian units, but of course these can be used in any kind of army where you have fortifications. So there are a lot of options for adding things to fortifications and use them in a game. So that's quite cool. A gun block for 90 points, includes a lighthouse and crew. I like that they have included this, because it's nice to have some good points to cling on to when you are trying to make scenarios with fortifications, because we really haven't had any points value on them before. So this is quite good. And then, like I said, the hollow charges for the German, light and heavy. You can use that to destroy fortifications and even kill the crew inside. And then there is French units. You get a Panhard command vehicle, French tank optional rules, and theater selectors, defenders of Ebenemal. What can you choose there? French units included, British 1st Army Tank Brigade. Special rules are here. Fallschirmjäger and Panzer Division, German motorized infantry. So those are the parts containing the fall of the Low Countries, and then you go to Fallrot, or Case Red, which is the invasion of France proper. That holds a couple of pages of fluff, and then there is the timeline going from May 23rd to July 10th, and you get the additional 6 scenarios. Scenario 12 is the Battle for Kassel. You get Mad Jack Churchill, which is a unit included when you buy this book from Warlord Games. You get Mad Jack Churchill, the miniature, and he is included here with his own special rules. Quite cool. Like usual, player notes, how to set up. Scenario 13, Hedgehog. Scenario 14, that's actually 2 parts, the Maginot Line. Another legend for Germany. So the Maginot Line is 2 parts. Part 1, the relief force, how to link it with part 2, and part 2 is attack on the blockhouses. And scenario 15, like I mentioned, is Italy attack. So that is a attack by the Italians to the south of France. And scenario 16, the road to Milan. Additional units, you get a L335 for the Italians, which is quite cool. The Maginot Line, once again, like for the Belgians, you get special fortifications that you can buy. And then you have the point value for them, and you can actually use this to build fortifications. It will be handy when we are going to play Invasion of Normandy to get these points here, that we can actually build something that is quite balanced. There are many options here. You can fit them with a medium machine gun, you can fit them with 2 medium machine guns, a VB launcher, they have artillery turrets and observation turrets, and of course there are rules for dragon's teeth and barbed wire. That is quite nice, quite handy. Theater selectors, British Dunkirk perimeter, so that is quite good to get a selection for Dunkirk, which is quite a famous battle. And Italian. So those are your theater selectors, what you can use for those scenarios. And then it's a final part of the game where you have some conclusion, and they talk about could Germany have won the war, blah blah blah. And then new scenario rules, which is quite interesting. You get the armored trains, and with additional wagons to put on the train. So now only to find a train in 1/56 scale, and tracks, of course. Here are the different loadouts, standard armored train configurations. These are both Polish and German and Polish, no, and Russian. And then you have rules for the different trains and cars. Minefield rules, those are covered in the D-Day book, but you get them again here. How to clear them, anti-tank, personnel, and manual mine clearance by infantry. So those are your 104 pages. I hope you got a good look and understanding of what's in the book. I can't reveal everything, of course, so you will have to buy it and look for yourself. But I would definitely recommend this if you are a player that likes early war. I definitely do that. And like I said, if you are playing a German army, there are no less than 16 scenarios that involves Germany here. So that is quite cool, and I especially like the linked scenarios in the 10 France mission. The one thing I do miss, however, there is one thing. They probably could have done it, but that would of course have made the book even bigger and longer. I would really have liked to have how should it be. Also, the setup is here. That's okay, but a map that shows you okay how does the building look. What about the surroundings? What about trees, hills, those sort of things. And of course, for all the scenarios, I would like to have had that so that you can kind of set it up as accurate as possible. But of course, this is no biggie. It says in the setup how you should set it up and if there are some special consideration. But of course, some graphics would always be welcome. But that is, however, the only gripe I have with the book. Apart from that, it's excellent. So I think you should check it out, buy it from Warlord Games and get the free Mad Jack miniature, and happy wargaming. So this has been Svein from tabletopbattle.com, and you have just seen a review of Germany Strikes, the Early War in Europe. Please leave your comments in the comments field and subscribe for more videos and to help our channel grow.